activities, put them in the right documents, and do the filing. What they don't know is that you probably can run their business better than they can. And when I give this presentation to accountants, this is the question that I ask. And I ask them not to be modest. I'll ask you to do the same. Once you meet your client, how many minutes does it take, once you see their financials, to know that you can run their business better than them? How many minutes? Notice I didn't say days, weeks, hours. How many minutes does it take before you know? Less than 5. Most common answer is 5 to 15 minutes. Fair? Why wouldn't they want to dive deeper with you? And possibly it's because of how you position yourself. And we'll talk about that a little bit today. How you talk about it, how you message it, message your services. So I am actually a recovering accountant. I am. I entered the accounting Hunger Games in 1985. I went to the University of Delaware and I was studying accounting and finance. And I was in one of those classes where there's 400 people in. Like you get there to school and you're like, wow, my seat's like way up there. Like what movie are they playing today? And I go all the way up to the top. And I remember I'm sitting there, my professor's way down there. And he's wearing the microphone. He writes on the chalkboard and hits the button and it goes up. And then he writes on the next one, hits the button and it goes up. And I remember it hit me. Like mid-October, end of October. And I'm like, I got it. I figured it out. I know what this accounting gig is all about. And so I wait until the end of the session, and I go down to the professor, and I say, Professor, I'd like a word if that's okay. He's like, absolutely. I waited, and I said, I think I got it. And he says, what do you think you have? Mr. Gould? Mr. Gould, what do you think you have? I said, accounting. I think I worked it out. He says, enlighten me. I said, well, if I understand it right, we analyze and categorize the activities of our clients, personal and professional, and we put those numbers in the right boxes, and some of the financials are supposed to even out or balance, technical balance, and some of them you should be more black than red. Is that right? He was like, Mr. Gould, that's impressive. That's impressive. He goes, you nailed it. That's accounting. I said, oh, wow, cool. I was feeling pretty good about myself. And I said, okay, so what comes next? And he's like, what do you mean what comes next? Like, okay, well, I figured out the whole categorization balancing thing. What happens next? And he looked at me and he said, nothing. Nothing comes next. You will categorize and analyze the activities of your clients. You will put them in the right numbers in the right boxes, and for the rest of your life, certain financials will balance out, and certain you hope are large, one side is larger than the other. And I remember thinking at that moment, I will never be an accountant. That wouldn't be for me. I didn't make it to the end of the Hunger Games. I wasn't the guy with Jennifer Lawrence. I was the one who got nailed much earlier. Right? So I remember my guidance counselor said, hey Carl, your math scores are off the hook. You ought to be an accountant. And I said, wow, that sounds sexy. I want that job. Right? But I got there and I realized that I'm more on the strategy side, not the analytical side. I'm on the other side of the transaction, and that's where you're headed now. As a Profit First professional and as a coach, you're now on the strategy side. The nice thing is you have the whole analytical background, which a lot of coaches don't, which a lot of coaches and other advisors lack, because the language of business is accounting. Right? You know the language. You got the language. Now we have to apply the strategy. And that's where your Profit First professional part of your practice works, and that's the part that you need to get across to your clientele. So here's a couple of ways that we can do that. So 1986, I'm going to school for accounting. My second year, I broke my leg pretty badly, and I had to leave school. I grew up right down the road here. I grew up in Morris County. Well, there's only one person from New Jersey. Is that right? This whole room, there's a couple from New Jersey. Riverdale, Morris County, right up Route 287. I normally can't say Riverdale and have anybody know what I'm talking about. But yeah. Bloomingdale, neighbors. Yes, absolutely. So right up the road, and I started my landscaping company, because that's what I did when I was in high school. I grew that business, and sold it in 1992. And then I started a construction and real estate development company, which I then sold in 2004. But in 1991, I went to a personal development seminar, fell in love with the science of personal development, and I wanted to become a coach. So I became a coach in 91. Again, 5 years of people laughing at me. They laughed at me so much, like, the more they laughed, it was funny. The more they laughed at me, the more I'm like, there's something here. I definitely want to do this now. So in 1996, I hired an advisor for my business, and I said, I want to hang up the hammer. I want to be out of this business, and I want to be a professional coach full time. But all through the 90s, I was doing work with Tony Robbins and Ken Blanchard and Stephen Covey and Dale Carnegie companies. And if you ever see the infomercials and they say, well, I coach that celebrity and I coach that celebrity and we work with that person. No, I coach that person. I was just a certified coach under that methodology, and I was the one coaching them. And so I wanted to find out how to make impact right away. And problem back then was there were no systems. There was no model you could plug yourself into and learn. They gave you the book, and then they gave you the client, and then they would say, go get them. And I'm like, well, go get them with what? And they're like, you're enthusiastic, you're passionate. That's enough. Be present. I don't need support. I need a little direction. Would be nice. All right? So you didn't get a lot of that. So I started documenting everything I was doing. And I started documenting, and one of the things we had to do was we had to figure out what was the strength of our client and what was the blind spot of our client. And we would do their personality assessment. And then we would ask them, what's the strength of your business? What's the blind spot of your business? And you know, one of the things I learned was the personality of a business mirrors the personality of its owner. Is that fair? Yes. Let's test it out. You have clients. If your client is an organized owner, what kind of business do they have?
Organized.
Don't overthink it. There's only one answer. Let's try it again. You have an organized owner. So you have a what type of business?
Organized.
You guys are good. And if you have a schizophrenic owner, you have what kind of business?
A schizophrenic business.
Schizophrenic, your clients, right? That's why they come to you in the first place. And so, I wrote a methodology where I can identify the blind spot and then coach to that blind spot. But first off, your clients are the most coachable in their blind spot. Okay? They are not coachable in their area of strength. So if you have somebody who's a printer, don't sit down and talk to them how they print, because they think they got that handled. They don't. Remember, I said they think they have that handled. They don't. But all the other areas of the business, they are very coachable, because that's their blind spot. That's where you come in. You are looking for areas of coachability in your clients, and they reside in the blind spot of your client. Okay? Because the business has a corresponding blind spot, and we've learned over the years that there's 10 to 30% growth hanging out in the blind spot of your client's business. Okay? 10 to 30% growth you just need to tap into. Okay? And I'll show you, we'll talk about that as we go through, and we'll take some Q&A at the end as well. So one of the things that I learned, so there was, my very first client was a small printing company. My next client was the gentleman who was reorganizing IBM and launching the business consulting service arm of IBM. And I remember getting his questionnaire, and on it says, I'm looking forward to you being my mentor. And I was reading this guy's resume, and I'm like, wow, what am I going to learn from him? Right? And what value am I going to bring to this person? But I found it interesting, he called me his mentor. I was coached, but he thought of me as a mentor. And then I have some people that say, I can't wait to be coached. And then I'll have somebody say, well, you're like my consigliere, you're my like top advisor. Right? And then some people would ask me, am I a consultant? And I started to realize that no matter what I called myself in the beginning, they had an idea of what I should be, what they wanted, and, by the way, what they were willing to pay for. Okay? So what I realized is that there are 4 disciplines to the professional practitioner. There are 4. First one, we call the consultant. I went for accounting, not English. All right? Our first one is the consultant. The consultant is the person who sees the problem. The consultant sees the problem, they diagnose the problem, and then they fix the problem. They do everything. So who's a consultant? A consultant is an accountant, a bookkeeper, an attorney, an electrician, a plumber, a dentist, an auto mechanic, They're an expert, right? You bring them in and you say, listen, doc, what's wrong with my teeth? They tell you what's wrong. You believe them. They're an expert in that area. They look at it. They diagnose it. They fix it. They do everything. They do everything. Okay? The implication of a consultant is that you are the smartest person in any room you walk into in your subject matter. Okay? So the goal here, or the path you need to take to ultimately be thought of as a top consultant, is to build your resume, build your credentials. I wanted to be a speaker 10 years ago, and I got the opportunity to co-author a book with Stephen Covey and Ken Blanchard. You can't do much better than that as like resume builder, you know? And so I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And so that helped launch my speaking career, because all of a sudden I was thought of as the expert because of Stephen Covey and Ken Blanchard could trust me. Maybe you could too. Right? So we wrote a book together called Blueprint for Success in 2007. And I contributed a chapter to that book, my 7-stage methodology. They thought that was a cool blueprint. Okay? So I became the consultant. The implication is, though, that you need to be the smartest person in the room. You deal with the mechanics of the problem and you fix the problem. It is going to be implied that you can fix the problem. No matter what challenge I throw at you, you can fix it. And you need to have the credentials to match it. Nobody actually understands what all those letters are after your name. They just need to be there. All that alphabet soup, CMP, CFC, IS, CPA, they don't know what any of that stuff means, but they figure, wow, that must take a lot of work to get those. Right? So now, well, what is all that? I have no idea, but they look like they spend a lot of time getting it. So there should be your name and then your credentials. Right? So essentially you want to make sure you have all the top industry credentials, associations, okay, achievements. You want to be thought of as the person that's the top in that field. You do everything. And your nickname is the specialist. You are the specialist. Okay? So think about it. You guys are the consultant. Here's the problem with a consultant. You meet with a business owner, and with a consultant, you tell the consultant what to do, and they do it, pretty much, right? If I'm oversimplifying, that's basically a consultant client agreement. Who else does the owner tell people to do things and they just do it? Their employees. So are you thought of as a peer, a superior, or an inferior in the mind of your client? Inferior. Not that it's not true. It's not like they're better than you. 1099 and not paying you on a W-2. Right? It's a perception issue, not a reality issue. It's just a perception issue. Does that make sense? Okay? That's why you need to have the top credentials. So you could charge the maximum amount for your time, or your program, or your process, whatever it is. Must be thought of as the top specialist. Second is the advisor. Okay? The advisor, code name, the generalist. Okay, now, I've trained more than 7,000 executives and entrepreneurs in 35 countries who want to become business coaches. And this is by far and away, not even close, there's no close second. This is the biggest, I'm about to give you the biggest mistake that you all will make with your clients. Avoid this mistake, and you will charge very high fees, have higher, longer engagements, and you'll have more customer loyalty. Continue to violate this rule, and you will find it harder and harder to maintain your fee structure, and you'll get commoditized. So the advisor, codename the generalist. Okay? Now the generalist oversees the problem. Okay? Like the air traffic control tower operator at an airport. How many of the air traffic control tower operators do you think can fly a plane? None. Maintain a plane. Clean a plane. Cater a plane. Throw people off the plane like Southwest Airlines just had to do the other day, which seems to be getting more and more prevalent. Nothing. They can't do anything, and they do nothing at the airport. But nothing happens without them. They oversee the problem. They are thought of as the person with the best network and the most experience. And while the consultant is the smartest person in the room, the advisor is the most important person in the room. Okay? They say in business, the more you carry, the less important you are. the less you carry, the more important you are. An advisor does nothing. And I'm going to demonstrate nothing because it's probably been a while since you've done that. I'm going to demonstrate what it looks like and pay very, very close attention because I think you'll miss it. Most audiences miss it. Ready? Here it goes. Here's what nothing looks like. I'm going to go on the count of 3. Make sure you pay very close attention. Here it comes. Ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Some of you missed it. I'll do it again. Okay, pay attention now. No need to write notes. On 3. 1, 2, 3. My wife marvels at the fact that I can do this all day long. The stitch, Carl, you have some stamina. You can do nothing all day long brilliantly. If it were an Olympic sport, you'd get the gold. Here's the biggest mistake you make. First off, let me ask you a question. Who is somebody that if I could arrange a 1 hour lunch, you could tell them anything you wanted, you could pitch them any idea, somebody you really admire, living or dead, I could arrange that lunch. Who is somebody you would travel to go see and you would pay to go meet with? Even if it was like a donation to their charity. Just yell out the names.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. Einstein. Oprah. David Bowie. Okay? Richard Branson. Who's the one in the back? Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett? Warren Buffett. Thank you. Thank you. So think about that person that you would pay to go see. Now think of that person for a second. David Bowie. I'm a big fan of David Bowie. Other than a microphone, when have you ever seen him holding anything in his hands? Warren Buffett. Go down the list. Oprah. Other than a microphone and some cue cards, when have you ever seen them carry anything? Never. The implication is they've got plenty of people to do that. The implication is that they have had a lot of success and they have a lot of experience. Now, generalist gets a bad rap because as a generalist, you are a Jack and Jane of all and the master of. That is a total misnomer. The generalist is the hardest to become. It takes the longest, and you can't buy this trophy. There's no class you can take. It takes decades to get there. Okay? Now, there might be some cases like Mark Zuckerberg where it took a decade to get there. Right? But that's very, very rare. Now, here's the mistake you make. Now, when you would travel and pay to go see whoever you yelled out their name. In your mind's eye, as you think about it, close your eyes. When you think of that person, point to where you see that person in your mind's eye. You would have to actually point to where you see them. Physically point. Okay, so close your eyes. Oh, let's do it again. All right, we'll have to review the training. You got all tied up in the last training. I'm sorry. New training. New training. Step 1. Because I forgot. This is why I never made it. Because it's step by step by step. Step 1. Think of a person you admire. Got it? Step 2. Close your eyes. Step 3. Wherever they are in the picture of your mind, point at them now. Keep your hands where they are. Open your eyes. Look around the room. Where are most of you pointing? Forward and up, right? There's a couple that are pointing down, because they're dead. I get it. Right? But the most of you are pointing up or in front, meaning you think of them as bigger, stronger, faster, more mature, older, more experienced than you. You think of them as bigger than you are. They are aspirational to you. Does that make sense? Okay? So in the mind's eye of an owner, do you think they take a truly aspirational advisor as their peer, inferior, or superior? Superior. Guess who we pay more for and we keep around longer? The advisor. Now, the second you do anything, what role have you just given up? Advisor. Guess what? This is the most coveted role your clients want, and they want it from you. You have the highest trust level of all of their advisors. You know their numbers, which means you know all the skeletons in their closet. You know them coming and going. Right? I've had the same accountant since 1992. I've only had 2 accountants in my whole life. And the only reason I've got this guy is because the last guy died. And I told Angelo, I'm going out with you. And I go out a day earlier than you, and you write a book, my whole legacy is shot. Right? You're coming with me. Right? And you know that about your clients too. You know, so there's a huge trust level between you and your clients, and they want the advisor. And so if you're doing the math, you're thinking, I do all sorts of stuff for my clients now, and you want me to stop all of that and then get paid more. Is that right? Is that what I heard? Kind of. You can continue to keep doing the stuff. You can continue doing the work. You don't have to stop. You must define it, though. You must say to your clients, you have specific sessions with your clients that are advisory sessions. Have specific sessions or parts of your session that are specifically advisory sessions. And here's what I do with my clients. Literally, this is what I do. I know you were pretty impressed with the nothing demonstration, so I'll do my hat demonstration. Ready? You have to look up again. I will literally say to my clients, let me take my consultant's hat off for a second, put on my advisory hat. Is that all right? And then we'll talk, and I'll say, okay, advisory hat off, consulting hat back on. So it's clearly delineated what I'm doing with the client at any given time. And when I am the advisor, I will do what for them? Nothing. And yet they'll pay me the most. I can prove it to you. This has been going on for years. How many of you have seen the Rocky movies? Some of you have not seen the Rocky movies. What planet are you guys from? Rocky movies, yeah? This is how it works. I ask a really dumb, obvious question just to see if you'll raise your hand. So, Rocky movies? Great. Okay, now, all the trainers, all the bad guys, they're like the consultants. They're the other consultants. They get knocked off in every movie. But Paulie makes it all the way through to the end until he dies. Paulie's the consigliere to Rocky, right? Think about The Godfather. All the kids get knocked off. They're the consultants, but the consigliere, all through the movies. The consigliere always makes it to the end. The consultants, they have a life cycle. They get knocked off. Okay? So, the biggest mistake that I find that you make is you take all of those years, all those decades of experience, all of that other client knowledge, and you throw it away by saying, oh, sure, but you're busy. Let me do the report for you. Is there any scenario you can imagine where you sat down with Richard Branson and he noticed you weren't taking notes, so he pulled out his journal and took them for you? What would you think of him if he even did? What's up with Richard? Somebody neck around and what is he doing? He's got a new job now? Why is he taking my notes? You wouldn't even think of him in the same vein if he did. And neither do your clients when you do. Does that make sense? That is your competitive advantage. Nobody can touch it. And you can't give it away. Does that make sense? The moment you start doing things without letting them know that this isn't part of their advisory, you give up that advantage. And it's the biggest mistake that I watch people make, because you can't buy the trophy. You've earned it, right? So in that advisory role, what you're known for is a person that can marshal all the resources, the people, the resources, the network, the products and tools, other profit-first professionals, in order to get the job done. I was trying to think about what's the best way to describe a generalist, because it gets a bad rap. Most people think it's the easiest thing to do. Oh, it'll dilute your focus. Nah. So my son and I are watching Animal Planet, and we're watching yet another show about sharks and crocodiles. And I'm thinking, oh my God, when is this thing going to be over? So finally, Sean and I decide we're going to go out. And as I'm leaving, they're interviewing this expert, and he says, and when we come back, we will tell you why the crocodile was the best generalist ever. And I'm thinking, okay, Sean, one more minute. He's like, you've been saying, let's get out of here. I'm like, yeah, I know, but now we got to stay for a few more minutes. And they come back, and this is a show on prehistoric animals that live today. And they were talking about sharks, and there's a couple turtles, and there's a couple of, other organisms. But they talked about the crocodile, and they said one of the reasons why the crocodile has lasted as long as it has is that it's a generalist hunter, meaning it can adapt and kill in any environment you put it in. And that's why it's been so successful. And that's what a generalist can do. A generalist and an advisor can be successful in any environment they put them in. I don't know if you go back about 9 years now, right? 8 or 9 years, and President Obama and the government did a bailout of the big three automakers, right? And so there were conditions on the money that they got. And General Motors at the time needed a new CEO. I don't know if you guys remember this. So President Obama calls on the retired former CEO of AT&T. This is the CEO that cut the deal with Apple for the iPhone, like only on AT&T. You guys remember that? Like back in the Jurassic period, the iPhone 1. You remember that? When dinosaurs roamed the plains and the iPhone was just coming out. You remember that time, right? And so President Obama calls this guy up and says, I'd like you to run the turnaround of General Motors. And he's like, Mr. President, I'm retired and 72 years old, and I wasn't really thinking I would take another position. But I do want to serve the country, so I'm happy to consider it. And so first question he got was, what do you know about the automobile industry? And he said, nothing. No, seriously, you've been around for a while, you've built things. What do you know about cars? He goes, I've bought a few, I've driven them, but I know nothing about the auto industry. I don't know how to make them. I've never, I haven't dealt with that union, and he was still hired for the job. And then he still successfully turned around General Motors because he's an advisor. You can put an advisor anywhere, and they'll fix anything. Make sense? Yeah. There's a reason why I'm spending so much time on the advisor. Got it? Okay.